I am a foster care case manager with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services in Otsego County.
All right. Are you familiar with the children, Corin, Barnett, and Miles Hodges?
I am.
And are you providing services to those children and their parents?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'd like to talk first about Mr. Hodges. How long he's been out of prison now? For several months?
That is correct. The first week of October.
Okay. And since that time, has he kind of really jumped right back into it?
Dennis has been cooperating with all of my requests at this point. We're having a little slow start with some of the services, some of which are no fault of his own, but we are getting going on his service plan, yes.
All right. And so he engages in the services outlined in the plan for reunification?
Yes, he does.
All right. And is he employed at this time?
He is.
And what is he doing?
He works at the Iron Pig, the South Side Iron Pig here in Gaylord.
All right. And does he have a place to live?
He is currently in a transitional house right now, as he is transitioning out of prison, working on finding his own place. He does have a couple of leads that he is working on, though.
All right. So in the beginning of this case, alcohol was an issue for Mr. Hodges. Are we seeing any evidence of that since his release from prison?
Not currently. He has been consistently screening with forensic fluids to include alcohol screenings, and he has shown negative for all substances to include alcohol since his release.
Okay. So we really are not seeing the issues of substance abuse.
That is correct.
All right. So does he engage in parenting time? He's the father of Miles. So with Miles?
Yes, he does. Currently, he's receiving twice a week, 1 hour visits at a minimum with Miles. Those he's been doing so well in those that the department has allowed another individual to supervise those visits, and they have been going great. We have not received any complaints from any of the parties.
Okay. And how have you observed any of these visits?
I have. Originally, I was supervising all of Dennis's visits up until about a month ago now. And that was part of the reason why we allowed another supervisor to monitor those visits. He was doing so well, there were really no concerns. He is engaging with Miles, he's attentive to Miles. Even with discipline, he is pretty spot on to meet Miles's needs while keeping Miles safe. And so we didn't have any concerns at that time.
Okay. So I'd like to talk about Mom, Tiffany Barnett now, okay?
Mhm.
All right. So Mom, there was another psychological evaluation done with Bridges of Northern Michigan.
Yes, that is correct.
And your court report indicates that there's really not many things that are different from the original psychological evaluation done in 2023 by, what's his name? Dr. Simmons.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. So has Mom consistently engaged in services regarding her mental health?
She's been consistent in services, in attending the services that we ask her to. It's the benefit that is concerning. Although she attends the services, she's not showing benefit.
Okay. What kind of, I know the new psychological evaluation is asking for a trauma-informed cognitive behavioral therapy. Is that correct?
The new psychological evaluation is recommending narrative therapy. I have had a conversation with the clinician who administered that. His he states that trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy is equivalent to narrative therapy, or a very close replacement for.
Okay, and so, Mom, do we have to find something new here, or has really the regular cognitive behavioral therapy is that been satisfactory?
She has received cognitive behavioral therapy through her counselor, as well through CMH, or sorry, Catholic Human Services, as well as through her art counselor, Rocky. However, it is not the trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And so those are very different modalities. And so she has not, to the best of our knowledge at this time, we have not been able to confirm that she has ever received trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy.
So is the plan, I know you're requesting 90 more days here. Are we looking to get Miss Barnett into something that is trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy or narrative therapy, or has that already happened?
That is correct. We are looking to work with her providers to see if that's something that they can provide her, um, because she is seeing so many different providers at this time. We're looking to see if that's something that we can add with her current provider, or if we will have to refer to yet another provider for her.
And does she do counseling in conjunction with the children at the same time?
She does.
And who is that with and how is it going?
That is with Jeanette Sayer. She reports that that is going well. I would like to correct myself. I just realized the previous cognitive behavioral therapy that I spoke about that she had received was not through Catholic Human Services. It was through Jeanette Sayer, the family counselor. So I wanted to clear that up. But yes, we have touched base with Jeanette. She states that the visits are going well. That the um, sessions are more geared towards really parenting time rather than actually focusing on any sort of therapeutic level. And she did state, however, that Tiffany had advised her of the incident that happened in August. And she had stated that Tiffany did not disclose all of that information regarding that incident. So there are concerns about her honesty with her care providers at this time.
Okay. And the incident last August of 2025, that resulted in suspending her parenting time, that being mom.
That suspended her unsupervised overnight visits, yes.
Okay. Are we asking to modify parenting time at this point?
Yes, with the recommendation from her family counselor, as well as receiving the psychological evaluation back, we are asking for supervised or unsupervised at the department's discretion. At this point, I believe that supervised is probably best for her at this point, and we're requesting that the department supervise those.
Okay. Does that also include the request for a designee if appropriate?
That is correct, yes.
And then as for dad, we're still looking for at supervised parenting time.
At this time, yes. I would like to see a little more in his services pertaining to ensuring that he is completed his substance abuse assessment and following through with all of those, as well as some additional parenting classes. He has indicated that he has done some, but I have not received confirmation of those, but he has stated that he is working on getting me those.
Okay. And dad, excuse me, Judge. Miss Rice, is Dad scheduled for a psychological evaluation also with Bridges of Northern Michigan?
Dennis has actually already completed his psychological evaluation with Bridges of Northern Michigan. We're just waiting on those results.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this peremptorily. Are we looking to get that evaluation results soon or later?
I would anticipate probably next month. I have not confirmed with Bridges at this time. He did complete it in February, and I'm noticing they're taking just a little over a month to get those back. So I would anticipate probably April.
All right. And would you be looking at that point to have those recommendations also incorporated into the plan for reunification?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And I mean, again, that would be subject to, if we started doing that, Dad, through his attorney, could always be like, well, I disagree with this, and then we could come back to court. I'm with that understanding.
Yes.
Are the children, how does Corin feel about her mom?
Corinne has expressed a desire to resume visits with her mom. She has not spoken negatively or positively about her mom recently, but she has expressed that she would like to resume visits.
All right. And what about with visits with Miles?
Miles has not spoken to me about Tiffany. He has not mentioned Tiffany. However, I was advised that Miles did make some like Valentine's Day stuff for his mom. And so he is still, obviously thinking of her and I anticipate wanting to see her, but I have not heard that from him directly.
Before I forget here, there was a travel request that you submitted to the court. Can you explain that and then make your request to the court as to signing permission for that travel?
I believe we were talking about a different case. To my knowledge, there is no travel for this particular case. That was a case that we heard earlier today.
Oh, okay. Then,
My apologies for that confusion, Don.
all right. So are we looking for significant progress here, as it relates to mom?
Yes. I had spoken with Dennis, the clinician who had done the psychological evaluation. He had made it clear to me that if Tiffany is going to succeed, she needs to remain motivated and consistent with her therapies. He did note that based on her personality disorders, that there are some concerns for her consistency and motivation to recognize not only her role in how she got here, but also how to engage in benefit from those services. So for her to succeed, she would need to, for lack of a better term, hit the ground running with her therapy.
All right. In Dennis Chitwood's psychological evaluation, it noted that Miss Barnett does not accept responsibility and blames other people. Have you seen that behavior in this case from Miss Barnett?
Yes, I have.
So is that something you've seen and maybe it's gotten better, or is that still a problem today?
I I see that as still a problem, specifically concerning her substance screens. Recently, in the last court report, she had screened positive for meth, and she had advised me that somebody maybe spiked her drink. In this reporting period, she had submitted to some forensic fluid screens, indicated that she had remained sober from THC since January. However, her substance abuse, her forensic fluids screens do not reflect that. When I confronted Tiffany about it, she indicates that she doesn't know how she's still screening, as because she claims that she is no longer using THC, which is contradictory to her results.
Okay. Hasn't she been getting that shot to reduce consumption of alcohol called Vivitrol?
Yes, that is correct.
And has that been going on the last 2 months, that monthly injection?
She had received a injection in January and provided me a letter signed by her physician. She also provided me one for February. However, that letter was not signed by her physician. It indicates that she received the shot, but it was not signed by her physician.
All right. There's a sentence in the psychological on page 4. It says, I used to drink Bud Light, but now I drink Fireball whiskey. This was said and acknowledged in the psychological, what Ms. Barnett said to the evaluator. Is drinking still an issue? I mean, this psychological says we're talking December. There were 2 appointments in December of 2025, and making that statement, have we had current use of alcohol the last 2 months of 2026?
I am not aware of any relapses in the past 2 months. However, I would note that the psychological evaluation recognizes her most recent relapse in November of 2025 that she admitted to. The psychological evaluation also indicates that the clinician perceives that there is likely more incidences of relapse unbeknownst to the department.
Yeah, okay. So the use of THC or marijuana, was that an issue in the psychological evaluation also?
Yes, that is correct. The clinician states that her use of THC just is another coping skill for her, and is um, exacerbates other risks in her psychological evaluation, and further indicates her use to her need to self medicate. I apologize for that confusing sentence.
Right. So when I look at mom's parent agency treatment plan, we have substance abuse rated as poor.
Correct.
All right. And emotional stability behavior is also rated at poor.
Correct.
And parenting skills are rated at poor.
Correct.
And then the other need domains are not ones that are really scored here. Where's mom really at with that kind of a report card?
At this point, there is concern about how long the kids have been in care and the lack of progress that Miss Barnett has made in her parent agency treatment plan. There are still concerns that she is still contacting Corinne despite the no contact or no supervised parenting time. There are concerns with her ability to regulate her emotions, as well as her high risk behaviors, endangering not only herself, but potentially her children if they were to be returned to her care. There are concerns for her substance use and potential relapse. So there still remains significant concerns in each one of those need domains.
Okay, and the psychological evaluation acknowledged that Ms. Barnett is a risk taker and is not inhibited as somebody normally would be.
Yes, that is correct. Miss Barnett's psychological evaluation revealed that Miss Barnett is likely to advance her own status, even at the risk of her children.
So really, as it relates to Miss Barnett, we're hoping that this narrative therapy, the trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, that she really engages in that and starts showing benefit based upon that this has almost been 3 years since we removed the kids.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And for Mr. Hodges, you're asking that he continue to engage and benefit from services in the plan for reunification.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. When you talked about mom, communicating with Corinne, was that something about like yelling out the window because their placement is very close to where Miss Barnett lives?
Yes, that is correct. It was brought to my attention after submitting the court report that Corinne was walking outside in the way that the houses are set up. She was walking by Tiffany's house, as they live in very close proximity, and it was brought to my attention that Tiffany was yelling out the window, communicating with Corinne.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to offer?
Not at this time.
All right. Thank you, Judge. Nothing further.
Mr. Brown, cross.
Just briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Rice, you stated that Tiffany is consistently engaged with services, but has not shown any benefit. How is benefit measured?
Benefit is measured on her ability to implement the coping skills and strategies learned in therapy. So being able to manage her behaviors in an appropriate way that wouldn't impact the children or her service plan. I say it that way, using the psychological evaluation as an example. She had difficulty getting there due to her inability to regulate her emotions. That indicates that she's not benefiting from the coping skills being learned in therapy.
Now, with regard to the coping skills, you mentioned that she was in CBT therapy, correct? Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes, that is correct.
And it was thought that perhaps she could benefit from trauma-focused CBT.
Yes,
do you know what the difference is there?
It is my understanding that the difference would be focusing specifically on Tiffany's past trauma, and allowing her to work through those traumas in a way that would allow her to move past them and be able to cope with those along with the subsequent behaviors that stemmed from those traumas.
And when did she enter the trauma-focused CBT?
She has not begun the trauma-focused CBT yet.
So is that a relatively new referral for her?
It would be, yes. We have not submitted the referral yet, as Tiffany is seeing many different professionals at this time, and we don't want to add another one onto her at this moment. What we'd like to do is see if one of her current providers can provide that to her without adding another provider on. So we're exploring the best way to provide that service to her.
And given the length of this case and how long this has gone on for 3 years or so, is this something just now realized that she had suffered trauma?
No, she has been dealing with different modalities in therapy to address her past trauma. This is something that was brought to our attention from the psychological evaluation that she would benefit from narrative therapy. When I spoke with the clinician, he advised that trauma-focused CBT is equivalent to narrative therapy, or rather the next best replacement for narrative therapy.
Is narrative therapy, to your knowledge, and trauma-focused therapy a new kind of a therapy that just kind of developed in the last couple of years, or has it been around for a while?
I would not be able to adequately answer that. I believe it's been around for a little while, but I am not 100% certain.
Okay, but it was, and again, just to reiterate, it was just very recently offered to her based upon her trauma. Is that correct?
Based on her psychological evaluation, yes, that is correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Judge.
Mr. Delaney?
Would you be asking the court for discretion to give Dennis unsupervised visits? Or would you prefer there be a hearing to accomplish that?
I would recommend that the visits be supervised or unsupervised by the department or its designee at our discretion. I would like to continue with supervised visits for now with the recommendation that we could alter that to unsupervised.
Does Dennis have something in his immediate control that he could be accelerating for his progress? Or is he on a reasonable pace considering his recent release?
I believe he could be making a little bit more effort regarding the parenting classes. And even he admitted that to me, that he could be doing a little bit better fast pace with that. But as far as he already has his substance abuse assessment scheduled, he has completed his psychological evaluation. He is completing forensic fluid exams twice a week. So as far as those other 3 services, he's doing what he can for those at a reasonable pace. Yes.
If you know, what's his schedule like at the Iron Pig? Is he, because most restaurants are evening, is he working late, going in at 5 and getting out of there at 2 a.m., or is he 9 to 5, or do you not have that information?
I don't know his exact schedule. We did talk briefly, and he is getting about 30 hours a week. And I believe they are a second shift, but I'm not 100% certain.
Okay, so he can get those. The parenting classes, are those online or are those in person?
Those are online. He can access those through New Life Pregnancy Center, and he has that information. He has started some of those classes.
Okay, and then just another follow-up on that. Are those available 24/7, or are they live where he has to get in there at 9 a.m. on a Monday, or what do you know about that?
They are pre-recorded, so they send them to him 10 at a time, and then once he completes the 10, then they send him 10 more.
Okay.
So I believe he can do them at his own pace, is my understanding of the program.
Okay, so with his schedule, he can get that in there. He doesn't have a second job. He's got the 30 hours as far as you know.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hansel, Cross?
Yes. Who is the third party individual who's supervising Dennis's parenting time?
Her name is Catherine. She and Mr. Hodges indicate that they are in a long-term relationship. I have supervised a visit with both of them there before allowing Catherine to supervise the visits. I have also had both of them come in and sign very clear guidelines as to what visitations look like.
Okay. What have been Corinne's behavior, or what's her reaction to Catherine's supervising?
Mr. Hodges does not have visitation with Corinne. Mr. Hodges only has supervision with Miles. Sorry.
Very sorry. I made a note.
Okay.
Okay, now I get it. Okay. All right. You must be getting pretty confused by our question too. Okay. What if you know, I mean, maybe you don't know, but what would be a brief description of narrative therapy? What takes place there?
It is an opportunity for the participant to narrate their own life story, and really focus in on the trauma, in replacing the trauma with addressing that trauma specifically within the span of their life. So it really hones in on that trauma.
Okay. Could you describe what a typical visit looks like between Tiffany and her children?
I have not supervised a parenting time between Tiffany and the kids since November. At that time, visits were very chaotic. Miles typically is, not paying attention, running around. Corinne and Miles are fighting for Tiffany's attention. And most of my visitations that I had supervised, Tiffany was chatting with me and wanting to talk about her service plan and not really focusing on the kids and their needs during those times. Her visits that were supervised by her relatives, they indicated that they went fine, but I don't know exactly what that means without being there.
Okay. What would a visit between Dennis and his son look like?
Dennis is very engaged. A lot of the times he would take Miles to the arcade and they would play games together. He often would talk to Miles, get Miles to engage in different games. Sometimes we would go to the library and they would play with the building blocks there. He's very interactive with him. Very full attention on Miles.
Okay. So as far as critiques of Dennis, is there any one, I mean, did you say that you thought parenting classes should be more focused on, or was there anything you would say that he needs to focus on more to expedite a process?
I wouldn't say to expedite the process. I would like him to gain those tools that parenting classes offer, simply because Miles is known to have some pretty erratic behavior at times, one of which Mr. Hodges did experience recently at a visit that was supervised by Catherine. They were at Walmart and Miles was having a fit. For some reason or another, and Mr. Hodges redirected him. He continued to have behavioral concerns. And so Dennis was really good about keeping the boundary. You're not going to get this toy because of your behaviors. Ultimately, they ended up cutting the visit short due to Miles' behaviors. So I just want to provide Dennis the opportunity to fill his parental toolbox for when those things do occur.
Okay. And as for Tiffany, am I correct in reading this? Are we still stuck in the substance abuse era of this? Or I mean, we're still working on that. It would appear more than going on to parenting skills. We're still working on those rudimentary, basic coping skills with everything, I guess.
Yes, we are very much focused on her substance abuse, but also her emotional and behavioral. She has completed quite a significant amount of parenting classes. Through the New Life Pregnancy Center, she has provided me an updated list, completing classes as recently of February 23rd. So she's completed the classes. Again, the concern is, much like with her therapy, is the implementation of the skills that she's learning through therapy, etc.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have no other questions.
All right, I have no questions either. Mr. Sommerfeld, any additional witnesses or evidence?
No, thank you, Judge.
Mr. Brown, witnesses or evidence?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Delaney, witnesses or evidence?
I do not believe so. Dennis, I do not see a reason to have you testify. I think the record speaks for itself, unless there's something that is compelling you to tell the judge something you've done that he doesn't know about that's positive. Do you agree? Okay, I think he said he's all set.
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Hansel, any witnesses or evidence?
I have no witnesses or evidence.
All right. Closing statements, Mr. Sommerfeld.
Judge, the department is requesting to continue the case for 90 more days. I think at this juncture, it would be helpful for the court to talk to Ms. Barnett. We're almost 3 years into this case. We do not have substantial compliance. I know we found a new mode here, but mom's really got to get into it, have no excuses, show benefit to the court next time. But she needs to be given that opportunity, just so we can say that, you know, we're not closing the door. We just found something else out because of the request for competing psychologicals because of the length of time between the two. So mom really, even in her psychological, she told Dennis, you know, I got to get it together because the department's going to take my kid in 3 months. Well, that's essentially, that's what we're setting the table here for with this report, that mom really has to show us something, show the court something, that she's just not going along, as Ms. Rice said, engaged in services, however, not showing the benefit. One of the examples that I think is important is psychological evaluation about not taking responsibility, blaming others. When you look at the parent agency treatment plan on page 3, it talks about substance abuse, and Ms. Rice alluded to this about having methamphetamine. And it says in here, well, I was hanging out with my friend Cody, and mom kissed him, drank, you know, one of his drinks, and maybe that's how it could have been transferred because I did not use methamphetamine. At this point in the case, we cannot have excuses like that when her children have been out of her care for almost 3 years. As dad goes, he's come out of prison. He's engaged in services. It sounds like parenting time is going well. I would ask him to keep it up. And I think that he's on the right path here. And I would ask that he continue that. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Sommerfeld. Mr. Brown, your closing.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't think Tiffany would disagree that she has some very serious mental health issues. She has been through a lot of trauma, and this case has gone on for quite a while. The issue that I guess that I would have, at least on her behalf, is that she is consistently engaged with services. She is doing everything she needs to do or is trying to do everything, keeping appointments, doing those sorts of things. The only issue is she is apparently not showing benefit. And I heard today, which I am not familiar with all of these things, but it is a new referral, which she hasn't even started yet, a narrative therapy, CBT therapy, trauma-focused CBT therapy, which it's always been known she's gone through trauma. And that therapy, I believe I wrote this down as a quote by Ms. Rice, really hones in on that trauma. So a lot of her other issues, substance abuse, self-medicating, as it's been claimed that she does, could be related to that trauma, which may have not been properly addressed. While there are many different mental health issues, and this is kind of an extreme example, but just kind of to show the point, if somebody has a substance abuse issue, we do not send them to a therapist that deals with domestic violence. If she has trauma-focused issues, she needs to be specifically counseled regarding that trauma, which once we look at all of the results of that trauma, and we really drill it down and dig really deep, there's an underlying cause for a lot of these issues and a lot of these things that are going on and a lot of the manifestations of what's truly going on. And so I would ask the court to give her some more time to see how this trauma-focused behavioral or narrative-focused behavioral therapy goes. And hopefully they can dig down and get at a root cause that is potentially causing some of these other issues that she is constantly dealing with.
Thank you. Mr. Delaney?
As to Dennis, if the court hasn't done so already, I would ask that the department be given the discretion for unsupervised parenting time as they deem appropriate. That would allow Dennis to earn that quicker without having to come back to court in the 91 days. And he's got some control over that. He can get those parenting time classes done. And he's doing well. He's got a handle on his substance abuse. He's employed. I'm sure he's going to work on his housing. That'll be the next thing. So it's appropriate for return of the child. But he appears to be on a good track, having just been released. He didn't waste any time. And of course, that is to the direct benefit of the child. Thank you.
Ms. Hansel?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that at this stage of the game, after nearly 3 years, it's getting almost too late to try and find the root cause of the mother's issues, as these children have been in care. I mean, the toddler's been in care almost his whole life. I don't think that he has the time for us to think of another possibility and to continue working on any type of a long-term therapeutic answer there. I do appreciate that the father does seem to be taking it seriously and is doing his best. And I don't mean to say that mother isn't trying. I do think she's trying, but it doesn't appear that anything is very successful. And my concern, obviously, is that these children are growing up in foster care and they need to be home. So that's my contribution, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let me address Mr. Hodges first. Mr. Hodges, it does appear to me that you are doing what everybody's asking you to do, and I want to compliment you on that. As Ms. Rice indicated, there probably is a little bit more that you could do in the parenting time services and the education area for that. So let's jump on that. Let's not leave any stone unturned. The attorneys are correct. It's been 3 years. Your children need to get out of the foster care system. If there's a way for you to be that out, then let's take every opportunity to do that. I think that you are performing relatively well, but let's not leave it up to me. Show me how good you can be. Make me have to give the kids back to you. And so I'm looking forward to that opportunity. So this next 90 days, I want to see you be a star. You're doing well, but let's bump it up to brilliant. All right. So let's just keep focusing on positives. Get yourself a place to stay so that the kids maybe can come see you on a regular basis. Do whatever else you need to do as far as educating yourself. Continue to do well on the substance abuse side of things. Keep up the good things. Make the good things into better things. You'll be fine. Ms. Barnett, here's the bottom line for you. If you can't see this train coming, let me explain it to you. You've got 90 days, and I'm confident if you don't change your behavior in 90 days, the department is going to ask to terminate your parental rights. That's me reading the tea leaves. That's me telling you that's what I reasonably anticipate is coming. I am still hopeful that you will begin to process the trauma that has occurred to you in the past and that you will benefit from these services. But I got to tell you, I don't see it so far. You're still doing the same old substance abuse, self-medication routine. You're still not regulating your emotions and your behavior. You're causing chaos. You're not listening to your kids. You're not listening to how you're supposed to act with your kids. If you can't change your behavior, and that may be how it is, you simply can't change it, then I'm going to have to consider whether to take your kids away from you. I can't put it any more bluntly than that. don't make me have to do that. You need to make serious life changes. If that means you need to get away from the people who are feeding you the substance abuse or giving you access to the substances or putting it in your drinks, however you want to phrase it, get away from those people. If you don't understand how to act around your kids, then you better be asking more questions and talking more seriously with your service providers. The time is now. If you don't do it in the next 90 days, I don't see it ever happening. So the window is closing quickly. I don't know that I can say it any better than that. Please do everything in your power to change your behavior. All right. Having said all that, I am going to adopt the recommendations of MDHHS. Miles and Corinne will remain under the jurisdiction of the court and referred to MDHHS for care, custody, and supervision. We will grant another 90-day extension to explore whether or not mom and give dad the opportunity, because of his recent return from prison, to benefit from the services. We're going to allow MDHHS to explore this trauma-focused CBT or narrative therapy. And just for Mr. Brown's, because he is being a good advocate and saying what he needs to say in his arguments for that, it's my view that this is another attempt to get her to talk about trauma, not the first attempt to do that. It may have a name that specifies trauma focused, but she's gone through trauma involved therapies in the past. And so speak to her if you would, please. This is not you only get 90 days to deal with it. This is your last chance at 90 days to deal with it. Do it now. All right. Parenting time for Tiffany will resume. It will be supervised. I'm going to give MDHHS the ability to move it to unsupervised. I don't think that that's highly likely, but I will give them that opportunity because I want to give Ms. Barnett every opportunity to do well. And if she is doing well and MDHHS recognizes that, then I want her to be able to move to that, because that will show substantial progress. So I'm not going to create an artificial barrier for her, but she's got to earn it. As to dad, I am much happier to give DHHS the authority and the discretion to move from supervised to unsupervised. As long as he's making the progress, and I think it's much more highly likely that he will do that in the future, but I'll wait and give DHHS the ability to monitor and decide that. I am going to require mom and dad both to participate in and to benefit from their respective parent agency treatment plans. I am going to require mom and dad to follow the recommendations in their psychological evaluations, and I ask that those requirements be incorporated into their parent agency treatment plans. And I will give mom and dad the ability to object if they believe that there's something that shouldn't be incorporated into the parent agency treatment plan. They can do so by motion prior to the next court hearing. But because I know that one of the psychological evaluations has not been completed for dad yet. So, but I want that to be incorporated subject to his ability to object. Anything else that the department or the attorneys would ask for in the court's order?
No, thank you, Judge.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, that will be the court's order. Will be recessed.
Your Honor.
Thank you. Yes.
Does the department have discretion to appoint a designee for a supervisor regarding Tiffany's parenting time?
Yes, I'm going to grant you that opportunity. Again, I want you to be careful in that regard, just based on the history. But as long as, again, I don't want to create any artificial barriers to her doing well. So if she's earning it, then let's give it to her. And if it would be easier for the department to do that, please do that. Just know that I expect the department to use a lot of reason and common sense in its discretion there. And I'll say it that way.
Understood. Thank you for
All right.
clarifying, Judge.
Yep,
Your
that's
Honor,
all
can
for
I say
today.
something?
Go ahead.
Is there any way, like, I get supervised visits, but can I be able to attend the kids' doctor appointments and supervise?
I've given the department the discretion to do what they think is appropriate and necessary. So you're going to have to work with the department as to those regards. And the better that you do, the more discretion that they'll be able to use.
Okay.
All right, that's all for today then. Thank you all very much. Did you catch my last thing there about incorporating psychological evaluation into the fair use and treatment plan? Yeah. Subject to dad's ability to object to it. Okay. You'd add that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm a foster care case manager with Wellspring Lutheran Services.
And are you familiar with Storm and John Lauber, the two children?
Yes, I am.
All right. And their mother is Teresa Lauber?
That is correct.
All right. I'm just going to get right to the point. You're asking to file a termination petition against mom in this case, Teresa Lauber?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. So when I look at your report, sounds like there was some engagement during the 90 days and then sometime during December, it just kind of all ended and we're not getting any drug screens. Is that pretty accurate?
That is accurate.
All right. Now, have we seen that type of behavior from mom in this case earlier on?
Yes, that is what is being reported earlier on in the case. I have only been on the case for the last 90 days, a little bit before that with John, but that when looking at case file, that is the MO. It usually, Tracy will usually engage a couple weeks before court and sometimes a couple weeks after court and then kind of disengages with her services.
Okay. So do we know, do we really know the status of mom's drug use at this point right now?
I would say that we do not have a clear understanding of the drug use. My most recent, or the last drug screen that I have in January was still testing positive for cocaine. She did do a screen yesterday, presented a screen to me from Great Lakes screening that was not verified by a lab per report. That was negative for everything, and my screen that we did is still pending. So as at this point, I do not have a clear understanding as to what her drug use is.
All right. Has mom been hanging out with someone named Tommy?
Yes, over the last 90-day period, I have had multiple reports from family members, community members, fellow coworkers who have all stated that they have seen Miss Lauber with Tommy, as well as Miss Lauber has stated that she's currently residing in a bedroom that she is renting for $500 at what is known to be Tommy's home.
All right. And wasn't Tommy involved? I know we're going back before your time, but, and if you don't know this, please tell me. But wasn't Tommy involved or one of the reasons for the original removal and the, you know, that involved the use of drugs at that time with the children?
Based on me and my research in the case file, that is accurate, what I read.
All right. So have you been able to maintain contact with Miss Lauber?
Miss Lauber's communication during this reporting period has been very inconsistent. I have made multiple attempts to reach out to her with zero responses. When I spoke with her just a couple days ago in my office, she had stated that she needed to take some time to work on herself, and that though she realizes that she was isolating, that she needed that time to work on herself. But she did not give any response to me. She did not engage with substance screens up until like 2 days ago.
Has mom, as Ms. Lauber, expressed a desire to actually want to overcome the barriers that brought her children into care?
Ms. Lauber said that she's very new to her recovery and that she cannot be around negativity or triggering events because they will trigger her. Our conversation just recently was very limited as to what she was willing to discuss because she did not want to be triggered. She does state that she wants nothing more than her children to return home to her. But she doesn't really fully, like, there's no change talk occurring with Teresa.
And really, there are no objective actions that are showing us that she's making progress in her reunification plan.
That is correct.
All right. When I went through her parent agency treatment plan, are you familiar with that document, the one with the report period of November 1st of 2025 through January 29th of 2026?
Yes,
And didn't you write that plan?
I did.
All right, so I look at substance abuse. You have that rated as poor.
That is correct.
And emotional stability behavior, you also have that rated as poor.
That is correct.
And child characteristics, you have rated as partial.
Correct.
All right. And then the other stuff, the other need domain are not. Would you say at this time that has mom engaged in services to the point she should have been at this time in the case?
No, I would not say that she has engaged in services at this point. When she does engage in them, she engages for a week or two and then will disengage. The last statement that I had from Catholic Human Services of her reaching out and doing her substance use therapy with them was December 15th of 2025. And then when we were having our discussion here a few days ago, Ms. Lauber reported that it had been late December, early January since she has had any involvement with her seeking safety or her individual counselor through CMH as well. And then she had reached out with her peer recovery on January 30th was the last time. And then she stated that she had reached out just a couple days ago. But other than that, she had not engaged in any services while she was taking some time to heal.
So the other part of the equation, the benefit, if we don't have engagement in services, would you agree that you're not seeing the benefit that we need to see in order to return her children?
That is correct.
So your report indicates that you don't see mom rectifying the situation at a reasonable time frame here, considering the children. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
And can you just explain to us your rationale why you don't think that mom would be able to get to a point to be able to parent in a reasonable amount of time?
So the children currently have been in care just shy of a couple days of a year. The children continue to, need some extensive mental health services just to be able to deal with the daily life stressors. As far as the engagement with Teresa and what she has done this far, I mean, we have a positive substance screen for cocaine as early or as late as a month and a half ago. We have limited engagement in services. She's not demonstrated benefit from services. She'll engage in services for those few weeks and then she will return to her way of living or, isolate, lack of engagement, lack of communication, and no participation. In order for Teresa to really benefit from services, even in a reasonable time frame, it's going to be require commitment on her behalf. And at this time, she is not demonstrating that commitment or motivation that will be required to decrease the barriers.
Okay, are the children in their foster care placements, do you find that that's appropriate and the least restrictive setting for them?
I do at this time.
All right, so bottom line is we're requesting to write and file a petition for termination of parental rights as to both children.
That is correct.
All right. And if that request is granted, are we asking to also not provide services based upon that request for termination?
That is correct.
All right, and how are we still leaving the door open for parenting time?
So at this point in time, we feel, or the agency and I feel that it would be beneficial for the children to receive written communication that would come to the agency. Both of the children are really struggling with the fact of knowing whether or not mom is okay, whether she is dead somewhere, whether she is living on the street. And that has been really detrimental to their healing and their own mental well-being. However, both of them can also determine and understand when mom is under the influence just by seeing her and talking to her. So at this time, we do not feel in-person visits would be appropriate, nor would phone calls or virtual calls, but we would ask that the court allow for some written communication that would need to be provided to the agency for verification of appropriateness before getting to the children.
Right, and John is almost 9 years old and Storm is 11 or 12.
Correct.
All right. So have they, I mean, those children are old enough to be able to observe things and communicate. The statement you made regarding about them being worried about their mom and, the status of her well-being, have you heard those statements from the children, or are those coming from other places?
No, those are statements that the children have told me personally.
Okay, and to give that a time frame, that would be within the last 90 days that you've been involved with this case?
That is correct.
How do they tell you that? I mean, is it emotional when they say that?
Yeah, John often says he misses his mom. He wants to know she's okay. Usually it's in a car ride to or from, or when I'm spending my one-on-one time with him. His demeanor definitely changes. His head will often go down, he'll look at the ground, loss of eye contact. And often shortly after that, we end up with a pretty significant meltdown or some sort of emotional dysregulation. Storm, when she has stated that to me, it's also been while we're either in a car ride, doing a sibling visit, conversation between them in general. And she does not, she shows some distress, but hers is more flat to the point. Like, is my mom still using? Is my mom still with Tommy? Is she okay? So hers are more direct to the point, but I think Storm's mental capacity is at a different state than what John's currently is.
Is there anything else you'd like to offer that we haven't talked about today?
I guess just that, you know, John just recently had a trauma assessment done through the FASTER program here. And it was really, really impactful when we have two very high regarded psychologists speaking to the fact that John's level of trauma and complexity is the most severe case that he has seen in the past 40 years. And that was stated right in a document that we received. And we see that, you know, they're predicting that John will likely require some sort of a residential programming at some point. We are working very hard. Foster parents are working very hard. Trauma therapists are working very hard to hopefully be able to get that so it doesn't have to happen, but that is something that is being predicted at this time with this kiddo.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hughes. Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Sommerfeld. Mr. Brown,
I have no questions.
Mr. Delaney.
Just a few, the testimony was very thorough. For the court's benefit, when was the last time Storm had a visit with her mom, an actual face-to-face?
I want to say that was back in October. I would have to look at case file exact because I know at the last court proceeding in December, parenting times were suspended at that point. So I want to say the last one was like around October-ish.
All right, and that would be the same for John also?
That is correct.
Okay. And it appears that unfortunately, the children had a positive response to the lack of contact.
That is correct.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, I'm going to be real candid with your client right now. And if you need some additional time to speak with her about this, please feel free to ask for it.
Your Honor, before
Go
the court does that, if I could make a statement, I know it's not a time for a closing, but if I could make a statement on her behalf.
Yep. Please feel free.
I did have a conversation, very candid conversation with Teresa. It was very frank, very open, somewhat emotional. At this point, I believe she understands the issue she has. Her children are in a good place right now. She, in my opinion, is not opposed to being filed. And as hard as it is, as much as she loves her children, she is trying to do the best thing for them, the selfless thing, and more than likely would voluntarily release her rights, knowing that the best thing she could do for her children is to provide them and take care of herself, which she still needs a lot of work to do. That is where my conversation with her went. That is where I see this case headed, Judge.
Thank you for that information, Mr. Brown, because that's kind of where I was going. I think you understood that intuitively. Ms. Lauber, I appreciate that information from your attorney, because it was, in my mind, it was fish or cut bait. If you wanted to have some time to be very, very serious about your recovery, I think my thought was going to be the first time that you miss, I was going to say to the department, file it. The first time that you had contact with Tommy, the first time that you used, the first time that you missed a drug screen, the first time that you did anything that walked off the line at all, it was going to be, all right, it's time, because these kids, as you well know, these kids have some serious issues, and we can't put your, and you know, I'm not making light of your issues, but we can't put your issues on top of theirs. you as the parent have to be the strong one for them, not vice versa. And it's difficult enough as a child who has those kinds of issues to navigate that process. And I can't have you being an impediment to them. So having heard from your attorney, and again, I do appreciate you being candid with him, and I appreciate his willingness to let me know that. I think that says a lot about your character, that you are trying to put the kids first, and that you recognize that you have a difficult problem and you need some long-term assistance with that problem. And I hope that you take advantage of this and use that time to help yourself and make yourself better. So, Mr. Sommerfeld, is there anything else that you need to argue by way of closing statement at this time?
No, Judge. The only question I have is the department can work on a petition, but I don't, has there been a request to set a hearing to release rights? I'm just wondering which way the department should go. And if it's going to be to a release, I know all of us are very busy. That would be one less thing to write. But if we need to go to a termination petition, we will also head that way also.
Mr. Brown, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor, I will verify this with Teresa on the record, but based on my communications with her, which again, were very open and honest and very frank, I believe we could set this for a voluntary release hearing.
All right, Ms. Lauber, you're shaking your head up and down. Is that what you want to do? All right, she's on mute, but she has mouthed the word yes, and she's shaking her head up and down affirmatively, indicating that that is what she wants to do. So I will, in my closing remarks, ask that that be done. So we'll set that for a hearing. Mr. Delaney, is there anything else that you want to make comments for the record?
I do want to add a few things. I thought that Kelly Hughes was very thorough in her report. As the court can see, the foster parents are here. They usually attend all these hearings, which indicates that they're very active in this case. Now, in cases where foster parents don't appear, doesn't mean they're not involved, but just the extra step that they're taking to be here. And you've got children on different tracks. As the court heard, Storm is really doing well. She's 11 years old. Her foster mom is here. She's mature beyond her years. She understands what her mom's going through. She's been doing better since she hasn't visited with mom. I don't mean that as a negative, but it's just kept that trauma out of her life because she knows what mom gets involved with. And I think that Storm is also ready to move forward if mom is. And so there's a very healthy situation there. John is a different scenario. I know his foster parents are here. John is 8. He has been subjected to some trauma. I don't see these children being adopted together. It's going to be separate. They have to be on separate tracks. John's behavior isn't there yet, and it would slow down, for lack of a better word, Storm's progress. So they have to be in separate tracks, and Storm may stay where she is and John may not, which is always a tough one for the court because he doesn't get adopted right away and he's in that transition period. Plus he has the trauma. So we have a couple of cases that are like that. But I do have some bright lights that the foster mom told me about for John. And she volunteered this, that he's healing, Judge. He's in this healing process. And we've not heard that today. And so he's at 8 years old, he's making some progress. So he's young enough to heal. He's got a long road ahead of him. And then something else that caught my attention, I brought this to her attention yesterday. He's reading a lot. And that's so important. We're all readers here. But at that young age to read, it's such a great path for a child to be on. It builds development skills. It grows the brain. It makes them smarter. It makes them a problem solver. And so you've got a foster mom that's encouraging reading, and that's going to cure a lot of, if he reads a lot, it's just probably one of the greatest assets we can have is to read. So I really want to thank the foster parents for putting him on that path. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. And I too want to echo those sentiments as to the foster parents of our appreciation for all of the care, custody, and time and effort and love that goes into taking care of one of these kids. And it is a hard thing to do. I hope that it is a rewarding thing as well. And you certainly have the court and the people involved in our system. You have our thanks and our appreciation. All right. Having said all that, I think it would be most appropriate in this case for us to set this matter for a hearing on a consent release so that we can get the appropriate paperwork. Mr. Brown can go over that paperwork with Ms. Lauber, make sure that that is what she wants to do, and we can make sure that we are on the appropriate page for that. It does appear to me that she has given this a great amount of thought, and I think it would be a benefit to the children at this time, given their own emotional and other needs that they have for that to occur. So I will ask my staff as quickly as possible to arrange that. Mr. Sommerfeld and council can all be present for that, and we'll do that as quickly as we possibly can. Having said that, it does appear to be appropriate for the visitations with Teresa to be suspended at this point, that the reunification efforts no longer be required for Teresa. I'm not going to require the department to file a termination petition because I think the hearing on consent release would be the most appropriate way to handle this matter. And John and Storm will remain in the care and custody of MDHHS and or its designee with visitations by Teresa suspended. Although if the department believes that it would be helpful to the children, I would not mind the written communication as a way of kind of easing the goodbye, if you will, portion of this part of that. So having said that, if the department believes that that would be helpful, if the foster parents believe that that would be helpful, I think that might be a good way for Teresa to say what she needs to say in a loving manner to the kids so that they recognize that this is a decision that she's trying to make to benefit them and not put any blame upon them for that. So I will leave that to the department's discretion. Is there anything else that the council would ask of the court by way of order?
No, thank you, Judge.
No, Judge, thank you.
All right, that will be the order of the court. Ms. Lauber, thank you very much for your candid nature of the statements that you made. I appreciate that. All right, court will be in recess on this file.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm a foster care worker for Otsego County DHS.
Okay, the documents that were identified regarding the child Axel Robbins, are you familiar with them?
Yes, I authored them.
All right, and you are also providing services to both parents, Mr. Robbins and Miss McHugh?
Yes,
All right. We're asking to file a termination petition here, is that correct?
that's correct.
And can you tell us why you want to file a termination petition?
Yeah, so I guess we could start with Dad, Dylan. Since the beginning of November, Dylan has pretty much stopped engaging in services. He's only had one parenting time, which occurred on the 15th of January. Like it says in my report, he was drug screened at that time. That was the only drug screen that he had participated in throughout that whole time since 11/19. It was positive for high levels of methamphetamine and marijuana. And then he had limited engagement with his therapist through Bear River, who did general counseling and substance abuse counseling. I did get an update from his counselor last week. I checked in because the last time I had checked in was the end of January, middle of January, before this hearing was adjourned to this date. She did indicate that she will be discharging him from services because he has not participated or communicated with her since December.
All right. This case, it goes back to a removal in April of 2023.
Yes.
All right. And so for both parents, we are well past a year for adjudication.
Yes, we are. A disposition in this case occurred in early December of 24. But like you said, we're going on almost 3 years. It did take some time for the court to take jurisdiction of this over this case. But Axel's been in care for almost 3 years now.
Okay. And as it relates to mom, would you agree that substance abuse played a role in her going to prison in the first place?
Yes.
And how so?
So she was convicted for bringing substances to Dylan's home. He subsequently overdosed, had to be revived by EMTs. And this was in April, and back in November of the previous year. CPS was originally involved with the family due to Heather and Dylan's methamphetamine use with Axel in their care.
Okay. And then wasn't it just I think in our last hearing, didn't mom, she had a positive drug screen in the prison?
That's correct. So Heather's parole was denied. She was supposed to be out in early December. It was denied. She had gotten into a physical altercation with another prisoner and was subsequently drug screened. She tested positive for methamphetamine, and I did not testify at the last hearing, but I believe, if I'm correct, she admitted during that hearing that she also used methamphetamine on another occasion as well.
So, and mom, if she were to get out, wouldn't she have to demonstrate a considerable length of time to demonstrate to the court that substance abuse and other barriers are not an issue anymore for parenting Axel?
That's correct. And that is the reason why we're asking for termination. I mean, Heather has limited access to some services, but we presented to the court that she successfully completed an advanced substance abuse program previously while she was incarcerated. And now we confirmed with the prison that in order to be eligible for parole again, she has to complete another 12-week program. And then by Heather's admission to me in a letter to me recently, she feels like it's going to be, after she completes that program, it will likely be another month before she can get in front of the parole board again. And that's just the estimate. So we're looking at probably May at the earliest. And then once she's released, she's going to need to be referred for a psychological evaluation. Axel's psychological evaluation stated that he should have an attachment assessment with both parents, which we have completed with Dylan and Axel. So she would need to be referred to that. And then she would need to, follow the recommendations in that and engage in whatever counseling is recommended to her, in addition to substance abuse counseling, in addition to regular random drug screens. And so the length of time that it would take for her to establish, some stability in these areas would put Axel, months and months and more months in foster care.
All right. And so really it's a question of permanence for the child. Him waiting for his parents because of things that they did in the first place that got the child removed.
Yes, unfortunately, that's where we're at right now.
Okay, and as it relates to Dylan, the dad, he's not in prison, but hasn't he had the opportunity to engage in services, and that really hasn't happened?
He has, yeah. So, if the court remembers, we kind of went through a similar situation with him back in September of last year, where he stopped drug screening and then tested positive for methamphetamine on a couple of different occasions, one of them at a parenting time. And he's been very inconsistent with his counseling since he was released from jail in March of last year. He went from Bear River to Catholic Human Services and then back to Bear River. And then he really wasn't engaging at all. And like I said, he's now being discharged from that service for lack of participation. And then again, it took the court some time to get jurisdiction in this case. So there was a significant amount of time where voluntarily he could have participated in services. And during that time, in fact, he had warrants out for his arrest, and there was a time frame from about 6 to 7 months where he had no contact with the department. He had no contact with Axel. He wasn't engaging in services. So really, he has had quite a bit of time to kind of get things together for Axel, and he just hasn't engaged.
All right, so you're asking the court to file a termination as to mom and also as to dad, articulated based upon the reasons that you have articulated.
Yes, we are.
All right, nothing further, Judge.
Right. Mr. Delaney?
Just a few questions. I understand your position as to time frame. In this case, it would meet the statutory requirements, but I wanted to get a clarification. Heather was supposed to be out in December 25. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And so we were sort of making plans for that, and obviously that didn't work out. But she could be out by May. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding from the prison couldn't answer any questions about the parole board, but they did confirm that it's a requirement that she redo this 12-week substance abuse program. And then the May timeline came from Heather's estimation that it would take her about a month to get in front of the parole board after she completed that program. So that's generally speaking, that's not a definitive time frame.
The next question is an open-ended question. I'm not suggesting any implication by the question, but is it a fair statement that you would have given her a chance without termination if she got out in December, but you would not do that if she gets out in May?
Yeah, again, given the time frame that she would need, to establish services and show benefit from them, especially since she's completed a pretty extensive, from my understanding, substance abuse program in prison, and didn't demonstrate any benefit from it. It puts Axel in a position where he's in care for far longer than he would have been had she been able to be paroled in December and start visits with him and start completing some of these assessments and get established in services. So yeah, basically we were all of a sudden looking at least 6 more months from our original time frame that there would be barriers to her reunification efforts.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Brown?
I have no questions.
Ms. Hansel?
Yes. Is Axel in therapy or counseling?
He is in therapy. We recently moved him from the therapist he was with to CMH just to try and provide some more services for him. But he's been in therapy since very early on in the case.
Okay. Do you know, and you might not know, but is his new therapist then in support of the goal change?
I don't know. This is a very recent change. we just got this going in the last, month or so.
Okay. And just for clarification for the court, is Axel's current placement, would that offer permanency to him?
I have had conversations with the foster parents. They are aware that we are very far into this case. I have asked them to have conversations amongst themselves. They do have other biological children in the home and other foster children. So they have not said definitively that they are willing to be an adopted placement for him. So it may be that we need to explore relatives or other foster homes in the event of a goal change. We would, if the court supports this goal change, then we would look to get an answer from them.
Okay, and how long has Axel been in this current placement?
Since the beginning of the case, briefly, he was placed with his maternal grandparents and had to be moved. And he's been in the same placement since that time.
All right, thank you. I have no other questions.
Mr. Solis, what has been the impact on Axel of his parents' continued substance abuse?
I think that we testified to the court, probably nearly every review hearing that we've had, that Axel struggles significantly surrounding parenting time, contact with his parents. It says in his psych eval, one of the recommendations is stability and contact with his parents. And he really hasn't gotten that. We've submitted numerous documents to the court from his therapist, from the school, from his doctor, all stating that, this contact with his parents is really negatively affecting him. However, when the goal is reunification, stopping that contact is counterproductive. But he has struggled, and when we've seen him struggle, and then when there's limited to no contact, we've seen him level off. And this has happened numerous times throughout the case.
I noted on page 2 of your report, the last paragraph indicated that there was a similar kind of circumstance in November of 25 with the father, Dylan, where he and mom got into a verbal altercation through the phone with Axel around. So there was some, I don't want to call it domestic violence, but there was some issue there within the home. And the following day at school, Axel locked himself in the bathroom and destroyed some of the property there. Would that be a typical response that Axel has to these kinds of disappointments and problem behaviors of the parents?
Yes, I would say it is.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any additional questions based on mine?
No, thank you, Judge.
No, thank you.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Any additional witnesses or evidence, Mr. Sommerfeld?
No, Judge.
Witnesses or evidence, Mr. Delaney?
Heather, you're not required to testify, but I wanted to ask you about when you thought you might be released. Did you want to answer that question? You're not required to testify, but I did want to ask you that question. Oh, I guess we can't hear her.
We'll give her a minute to try to find somebody to help her with the equipment.
Okay.
We're hoping that you can help us hear Ms. McHugh.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you to the staff.
Did you want to answer that question, Heather? If you didn't want to testify, that's okay, but that's the only question I have for you.
Yes,
so
I
that's-
do.
You do want to answer that question? Okay. I don't know if she needs to be placed under oath, but the court is certainly welcome to.
I'll just
Heather,
take the information.
thank you. The department indicates that obviously it's early March, that you might not be released at the earliest until May. Do you have any information about specifically what the earliest date might be and what the latest date may be?
Okay, so I'm already in this substance use class and it should be ending around mid-April. And then it takes like a month. I don't have to see the parole board again. It takes like a month after for them to process everything. So I'll probably be released in May. Longest would be June.
All right, obviously absent any other occurrences, you're gonna be released May or June.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
All right, Ms. Hansel, any evidence or witnesses?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Sommerfeld, closing.
Judge, if the court allows a termination petition, MCL 712A.19B3CI, us having jurisdiction, more than 180 days have passed. Mr. Solis said it's been more than a year, or about like 15 months, and that the conditions that brought the child into care have not been rectified, and they will not be rectified in a reasonable time considering the child's ages. A corollary to that is that when someone is not benefiting from their plan for reunification, it would, based on their conduct or capacity, this is MCL 712A.19B3J, based on the conduct or capacity of a parent, there would be a risk of harm. The risk of harm would be that you didn't complete your plan for reunification. So it's axiomatic in some ways that if barriers are still in place, I mean, that would present a risk of harm. It's like returning to a house that was burning. If it was still, having a fire, there would be a risk of harm. We would want to see that the fire was put out before we would go back to it. That would be the basis for the termination petition. I just think the case is in a good posture legally and also factually based upon the parents' lack of performance here. And we've got continued use of substances, even in the prison system, which I find quite remarkable. And then we have a demonstration from dad who has at times been involved and then at other times not. And then there's that recurring theme of substance abuse, which I know that this court was not present when we filed a removal petition. It was based highly on substance use and domestic violence in front of the children. So the court is in a good position right now. Doesn't mean that we'll meet our proofs. That is yet to happen. But I believe the case is in a good posture to file that petition. If we would do that, we would also ask to suspend any parenting time and also that any services for reunification also be stopped because we'd be seeking a goal change.
Mr. Brown?
Your Honor, again, I did speak with Mr. Robbins just yesterday. He was very aware that this was a request by the department. I'm a little surprised that he did not show up today. I will just leave this at the discretion of the court.
Thank you. Mr. Delaney?
My statements are mostly for the benefit of Heather McHugh, who is obviously not sitting in the courtroom with me, and I can confer with her. But I want her to know that the request to file a petition is just that. The court doesn't receive that and then terminate your parental rights. The petition is filed, and then you're entitled to a full hearing before this judge, not before a jury, to defend yourself on that. And once a case has progressed long enough that it's within the bounds of the court to simply allow that request to be made, which is likely what will occur here. And then finally, you're entitled to an in-person hearing. So if you are still incarcerated at the time of this case, you can ask to be brought to Gaylord to be present for the hearing, or if you're out, then you can attend the hearing. So I want you to know that your rights are not going to be terminated without a full hearing before the court, and the court's made no decision at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Ms. Hansel, any comments?
I would support a goal change, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, the court does believe that there has been a sufficient time that has passed to allow for the request for termination of parental rights. Mr. Sommerfeld has stated the correct bases for that. That there's not been a rectification of the original purposes or reasons for bringing into a court's jurisdiction in a reasonable time, and that their conduct and capacities has a substantial risk of harm to the child from the parents. Again, not pre-deciding the case, but indicating that there has been on this record sufficient circumstances to allow a termination petition to be filed as to the continued substance abuse of the parents, dad with access to the child and mom while she's in the prison system. So I don't make any findings as to those things. I just simply note that they are in the record and that there are sufficient reasons to allow a termination petition to be filed, and I will authorize that to be done. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that to occur, Axel will remain a temporary ward of the court and with his referral to the Department of Health and Human Services for placement, care, and supervision. That will be continued. The permanency goal will be changed from reunification to adoption. MDHHS will no longer be required to facilitate parenting time for either parent and will not be required to provide reunification efforts and services given the change in the goal. We will ask the court or ask the Department of Health and Human Services to file that petition as quickly as possible. And once received, we will set a hearing date for that, at which the facts can be actually determined as to whether or not it is applicable and appropriate. Anything else by way of order by counsel?
Thank you.
And we'll file that petition within 28 days.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's all for the record for today. We'll be in recess on this matter.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.